And joining us now with an important announcement, you're not going to want to miss this, former Senator from the great state of Pennsylvania, Rick Santorum, who's now with the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Senator Santorum, welcome.
Hi, Laura. How are you?
We've been trying to tell people over the last couple hours now that we have 4 days to stand up. And tell us what you're thinking now.
Well, as you know, I've been out there sort of, I don't know, leading the bandwagon, but certainly one of the folks leading the bandwagon doing what you're doing effectively is talking about John McCain's record. And last year I came out, actually right before the CPAC convention, and said that I would be for anybody, could be for anybody but John McCain. And they said, why aren't you for somebody? And I said, well, because, you know, if you look at all the candidates, all of them have real problems. And that's really been the problems with conservatives. They've looked at them and said, you know, where have these guys been? I mean, you know, they're sort of all over the map on a lot of these issues. I said, but, you know, one thing I learned in the 2006 election, Laura, as you know, in Pennsylvania, it was a big election. It was high intensity. And that when you're in an election like that, like these presidential candidates are in, it's like a pressure cooker. And everyday experience in a campaign like this is like 2 or 3 or even a month's worth of life experiences. I mean, you can, as I said last year, I said you can change, and your heart can change. Your interactions with people, and the fact that you have to, you know, sort of live this experience of wanting to be a president and what you stand for, and having to weave these principles together. And I said, I want to see if there's anybody in this field who can take this lump of coal, which in my respects, many of them were, and turn it into something that was really a diamond that conservatives can get behind. And you know, I've been watching watching the debates, watching the speeches, and I came to the conclusion that Mitt Romney, who at the beginning of this campaign, I think really just looked at the Republican playbook and said, yeah, I should be for all these things, and sort of checked out. So if you look at Romney at the beginning, I said, they said, why can't you be for him? He's for all these things. I said, well, because maybe he says he is, but I don't know whether he believes it. I don't understand whether his principles tie together that this is a guy who really is a conservative and someone we can trust. And what I think, what I know I have seen over the past 9-10 months now is a guy that has gone through that pressure cooker, who has developed a passion, who understands why he's a conservative and understands the issues, how they weave together, and what America, conservatism is about traditional values and traditional way of American life. And I think he understands that. It's not just in his head anymore, it's in his heart. And so when I called him last night after I was on O'Reilly, and another beating up of McCain appearance that I did, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I've got to be for somebody, and he's proved to me that this is someone that in his heart, he told me last night that he was going to fight to the end, that this was for the soul of the Republican Party, and it is. I'll tell you one more story. A couple of days ago, I was at a dinner here in Washington, D.C., and I ran into a very good friend of mine who's one of the leading McCain people. And this was the day after day after Florida, excuse me. And he walked up to me, and he pointed at me, and he said, "We beat you." And I thought to myself, you beat me? What do you mean you beat me?
Conservatives.
Exactly. We beat you. We beat you conservatives. And that to me, that combined with the debate and my wife Karen, who's been encouraging me to do this for a few weeks now, this is a battle for the soul. And I can look at the other candidates. Obviously, the only other viable candidate out there, potentially viable candidate, is Mike Huckabee. And Mike's a great guy. He's been a great candidate. I mean, he's brought a lot of life, and he obviously has a tremendous amount of charisma. But he is so wrong on national security. He is so unprepared at a time when our country is at war to be the commander-in-chief of this country. And if he was running for governor of the United States, he'd be seriously considered, but he's not. And maybe there's a time down the road that he'll understand the ramifications of the war that we have. I spent an hour and a half with Mitt Romney about 5-6 months ago, and we spent an hour and a half. As you know, I'm at Ethics and Public Policy, and I'm working on the jihadi issue. And I spent an hour and a half with this guy, and I can tell you, he understands it. We talked almost all that hour and a half about Iran. He was not only curious, but had some very interesting insights and ideas. He understands the national security piece. I walked away from there saying, okay, I can check that box. This guy really gets it. He understands it. He has a depth of knowledge about it. He knows what it means to be a commander-in-chief under these circumstances, both as John McCain effectively does in fighting the war overseas, but just as importantly in fighting the war here at home, where John McCain has had a horrible record in protecting us here at home.
Well, Senator, I know you're on a roll. You're on a roll here.
If you're a conservative, there really is only one place to go right now. I would even argue further than that. If you're a Republican, in the broadest sense, there is only one place to go right now, and that's Mitt Romney.
All right, I'm going to see your endorsement and raise you an announcement. February 12th is the big D.C. primary. I'm pulling the lever for Mitt Romney. No doubt about it. No hesitation. It's not going to affect anything because D.C. doesn't matter. But you got to vote, and there is no way in hell that I could pull the lever for John McCain in the primary. I can't do it. I just can't do it. And, you know, people are wishing for these perfect candidates, Senator Santorum, but on the issue of national security and on this issue of traditional marriage, Romney stood up and he fought the forces of, you know, of this evolutionary approach.
Can I add one quick point on that?
Very quickly.
I worked the marriage issue. John McCain fought me every step of the way to bring that bill up to the United States Senate floor, voted against the amendment. I worked with Peter Flaherty, with Mitt Romney. They were in constant communication with me throughout the time we were doing this marriage debate. He was tremendously helpful to me in crafting this amendment and working with people to get moderates, even some moderates, to go along and vote with us. He was a tremendous asset early on this issue when it wasn't.
All right, we're out of time, Senator. Senator Rick Santorum endorsing Mitt Romney unequivocally, without hesitation. That should mean something to all of you. Senator Santorum, thank you so much.